magnificent. To my Muslim family, I say assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
To our other guests, I say peace be unto you. I thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for allowing me this honor to stand in his place in this moment to share a few words about Attorney Louis Myers, Jr. And Tina, I spoke to the minister this morning, and he wanted me to convey to you how much of an honor it was and is to him that you wanted him to perform Lou's eulogy today. And as you heard, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was in the hospital for a few days. He told me this morning to tell you that he had a bacterial infection that caused some complications, but I spoke to him for 2 hours this morning. 2 hours! And he's looking fantastic as he always does, and he's doing well. We thank Allah for that. Now some may ask, how is it that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan asked me in particular to have some words? In fact, he called me on Thursday morning, and the call was at 5:37 a.m. I know the exact time because it was at 5:37 a.m. And when I saw the number, I came to and almost stood up. But I was laying down at the time. And we spoke for about 20 minutes. And he told me then that he did not think that he would be in a position to perform Lou Myers' eulogy. And he asked if I would stand in his place. But the backdrop to that is I have been an attorney for 20 years. But I've been a card-carrying member of the Nation of Islam for 24 years. When I was in college, as a 19-year-old college student, I grew up eating a lot of candy. And that was when penny candy was a penny. And you could get 100 pieces for $1.
That's right.
As opposed to 5
That's right.
pieces today.
That's right.
And so I found out where the candy store was. And it was a brother by the name of Brother Eugene X. And those who close to him affectionately called him Gene. And I would go there to the candy store and get my fill of candy, and he would be playing tapes of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so God knows how to get you wherever you are. And so because I had this candy fix, I was hearing words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in my ears. And so Brother Eugene invited me out to Savior's Day, 1994. And when I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speak, the first thing I said to myself is, who is this man talking like this? And from that moment, Andre, the light in my head started coming on. And so when I got back to Chicago, I was in law school, I would hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speak about Attorney Louis Myers, Jr. And one of the accounts that he told about Lou was when the minister stood up to start rebuilding the Nation of Islam in 1977. He didn't have anyone around him. And he was invited to speak in Oxford at Ole Miss. And when Minister Farrakhan went down to Ole Miss, he didn't have anyone with him. And so he came into a meeting of some strong black brothers.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
That were already down there fighting the Klan. Not just fighting, I mean, they literally were strapped. And if the Klan shot, they shot back. And so in this meeting was Attorney Louis Myers, Jr. And when Minister Farrakhan said to them that he was going to speak at Ole Miss, he said that Lou pulled a 38 out of his pocket.
Go ahead.
And put it on the table. And then asked him if he could go with him. He said, you're not going by yourself. And when they got to Ole Miss, all those men that were down there were standing with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Skip Robinson, and others. And Lou was standing behind the minister with a Bible in his hand. Reverend Wright. But it wasn't for scriptural reference purposes. Because the Bible was cut out and inside was his 38. Just in case somebody got crazy, then he was going to shoot whoever was going to try and harm y'all with Minister Louis Farrakhan.
That's right. That's right.
And so when I heard Minister Farrakhan tell that story, I said, I got to meet that man, like you, Andre. But he wasn't the first strong black attorney I ever saw in my life. The first one was my uncle, Robert C. Power. He was born in 1922. He graduated from Morehouse in 1943. He went off to the war and came back and went to law school. And he graduated John Marshall Law School in 1949. And he and his partner opened up Power and Dixon in 1950. And my uncle was a quiet man. But what made him so strong as a black attorney is that he and his partner opened up their office downtown Chicago in the only building that would allow black people to have rented space. And so my uncle would tell me that sometimes black people would come downtown because they did not believe that there were some black lawyers that had space on State Street. But they did.
Go ahead.
And so my uncle was quiet, but he had already put the idea in my mind of what a strong black lawyer looks like. So I was already mentally prepared to meet an attorney, Louis Myers, Jr. And I, like Andre, met attorney Myers, and I saw him once, and I ran up to him and shook his hand. And I'm just going to say he had a lot on his mind. Because he like, how you doing? And kept on walking. But I was not deterred. I said, it's all right. I am not deterred. And my cousin and I, Africa, who was here, we were members of the next leadership generation at Operation Push. And I was at Push, and one time Attorney Myers was there, and I heard Reverend Jackson call him out, and he stood up and said, oh, it's on now. So like a heat-seeking missile, when that meeting was over, I found my way to Attorney Louis Myers, Jr. And I gave him my resume in about 30 seconds. How you doing, sir? I'm a graduate of Morehouse College, went to DePaul College Law School. I want to be a lawyer. You're a good man. I heard the Mr. Louis Farrakhan talk about you. I'd like to be with you. Now, he was probably just so dazed and confused that I ran that much down in that fast. He said, this boy is serious. He said, all right, this is what you do. You come down to my office on Monday, and we'll talk. And I was almost like that client, sitting outside his door, waiting for him to get there. And we talked, and I'm not sure what I said, but he asked me some questions, and I answered. And whatever it was, it reverberated with him. And so then he allowed me to shadow him. And I became an attorney in 1998. Now I didn't have any, I wasn't married, didn't have any children, didn't have any clients. So I had plenty of time on my hands. So my first job as an attorney was to be Lou Myers Jr.'s livery driver. Wherever Lou had to go, I took it. For 4 years. Now, Lou was a lot of things. One thing he was not was an advanced planner. And I say that because I would be with Lou all day. 8 a.m., 8 p.m. We would talk at night when I got home. Lou, what time should I come and pick you up in the morning? Call me in the morning. It's like 9 o'clock at night. I think you know what your morning schedule is. That you maybe let me know now and I can kind of like be there when you need me. But it didn't work like that. So I would call him at 7 a.m.
Go ahead.
And he would say, come pick me up at 8 o'clock. I'm on it. And I would go down there. Now, Attorney Myers and I, just to set the stage, we probably went out to eat hundreds of times. Not dozens. Hundreds of times over 20 years. And he paid for the dinners and lunches or whatever it was practically every time. And so this today is my way of, a small way of trying to pay Lou back. Just a little bit. Now you gotta know that when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan calls you and asks you to do anything on his behalf, that's some pressure.
Yes, sir.
And then when you see an august room like this, or a dais like this, that's some pressure. Or when you try and lift up words for a man like Attorney Louis Myers Jr., who is already in the stratosphere, that's some pressure. And then when you only have about 48 hours to put some stuff together, that's some pressure. But as I look back over my 20 years with Attorney Myers, I can recollect and reflect on the fact that he was actually preparing me for this day. Because you can't be no punk rolling with Attorney Louis Myers. Let me tell you that right now. And Attorney Myers, you know, I'm an alpha as well. And Lou Myers was really the fraternity all by himself. Because the type of pressure that he put on me, it was like he was hazing me. For instance, when I was but a few days out of law school, the Ryan Harris case happened. And it was but 3 or 4 months out of law school. Now y'all gotta know, I didn't know a thing, right? I was riding their coattails, I was carrying their briefcases, and Attorney Myers called me one night because it was so much press. The 3 of them couldn't really handle it all. So Lou Myers called me one night. I was in the bed under the covers. It was about 10:45 p.m. I should be in the bed. Lou called me at 10:45 p.m. I said, "What's going on, Lou?" He said, "Berve, I got to do this radio show in the morning, this TV show I think it was." And he said, "I'm just not able to do this radio show at the same time or as well." He said, "So I need you to cover it." I said, "Okay. When does the radio show start?" He said, 11 o'clock. I said, "Like 11 p.m.? He said, "Yes." I had to get out the bed, go to the kitchen table, pull out some paper to get ready for a radio show. I said, "Lou, how long is the radio show?" It was Nate Clay's show. I said, "How long is the radio show?" 4 hours.
No, sir. Come on now.
I'm 23 years old, 4 months out of law school, and Lou just called me and said, "I need you to cover a 4-hour radio show starting in 15 minutes. I gotta tell you, I put on every single thing I can remember from law school to say on that show. But that was that. But then the next year was the Decatur 7 case. Now, I'm about a year out of law school. And I'm going to tell you some stuff, Brother Courtney, that you don't know. And quite honestly, nobody else knows but me and Lou. Lou knew that he had to go down to Decatur and file the attorney's bill, or a TRO. Now, I didn't know what a TRO was. I'm trying to put it in perspective. I had to look up TRO. And Lou said, "Bervey, I want you to draft the TRO." I said, "Okay." We're in Chicago. I'm researching it. I drafted. We're getting ready to go down to Decatur. I said, "Lou, here's the TRO." He said, "Don't worry about it. Just print it." I said, "I'm sorry. Are you going to look at this?" He said, "We don't have time. Just print it." Now, Courtney, we driving down to Decatur. I've got my head down in the back. Jesse Jackson's down there. These satellite trucks are down there. And I'm saying to myself, I done messed up the entire case. And it's going to get thrown out because Lou Myers didn't look at what I wrote. And it happened to be enough to make it through. We were still down there, and as the lawyers will know, after TRO, you file for a permanent injunction. So Lou said, "Bervey, I want you to draft this permanent injunction." I said, "Okay." Now the thing about it was about 9 o'clock at night. Lou went to sleep. I literally stayed up through the night. Never saw my hotel room drafting this permanent injunction. We wake up in the morning. Or he wakes up in the morning. I hand him the TRO, permanent injunction, about 10 pages long. He reads the first 3 pages. He said, see, that's why I give you the ball in the fourth quarter. I said, no, I don't want the ball in the fourth quarter. I want it in the first quarter. I got 3 more to go. But it keeps going. So, Lou Myers, and I didn't see him here, had a client named Hal Baskin. Everybody knows that's an activist in Chicago. Hal Baskin would be found out on the front lines, fighting for, at that time, contractors' rights. He would work to shut down construction sites. Now, I'm all of about now 4 years into the practice, maybe 5. And Attorney Myers calls me on a Wednesday to his office. He said, Bervey, come to my office. He didn't tell me why. So I came to his office. I said, what's going on, Lou? He said, here's Hal Baskin. How you doing, sir? He said, Bervey, I've got to go out of town. He's got a trial coming up. Now, these are true stories.
Yes, sir.
I'm so not making this up. He said, Berv, I want you to try this case for me. I said, okay. When is the trial? He said, Friday. I said, Lou, you mean as in the day after tomorrow, Friday? He said, yes.
Yes, sir.
I said, okay. Sir, tell me what happened.
Go ahead.
So that's my first chance to hear what the case was about. So then I hear that Hal Baskin and his group shut down a construction site. Some officers came out, and he was charged with resisting arrest, obstruction of justice, and battery on a police officer. Now, anybody that does criminal defense work, you would rather have a murder case than a battery on a police officer because the witness is the police officer. And customarily, once that officer gets on the stand, it's lights out for your client. So, Judge Hooks, it was not just a regular patrolman that got on the stand. So all day Thursday, I prepared for this case. Friday, we show up. He had all of his group out in the hallway. We go in the courtroom by myself and Hal Baskin, and we start this trial. The prosecution calls their first witness. The person that walks out is a white shirt. Now, if anybody know anything about police, white shirts are supervisors. And they customarily don't testify in court. When I saw that white shirt walk out, I leaned over to Hal and said, Hal, they want you bad, bro. That's a white shirt on that witness stand. And so we proceed to try this case. Well, I tried this case with less than 48 hours notice, kind of like today. Said Lou was preparing me for this day. So we tried the case. And after the trial, I called Lou Myers to tell him what happened. He said, Bervey, what happened? I said, not guilty on all counts. He said, that's why I give you the ball in the fourth quarter. I don't want the ball in the fourth quarter. I want it in the first quarter. So the pressure is mounting. So then he calls me with the most pressurized matter. He calls me because he knows a young man, teenager at the time, and anybody who's a black male in Chicago knows you don't have to do anything to get arrested in Chicago. I got pulled over so many times in high school, not because I was doing something wrong, but because my dad had a Mercedes-Benz and I had a leather coat with fur around the collar. And so I got stopped because every cop saw me, said I must be a drug dealer. So I stopped counting after 10. So this young man was with some friends, and the friends were getting into some things. And this young man got charged with a felony. And I said, okay, well, Hal Baskins was a felony. Who is this young man? He said, it's my son. And I said, Lou, of all the lawyers you know, you call me about your son having a case? He said, I want you to try his case. Now, I took a deep breath. It wasn't the fourth quarter that time. So I had some time, but sometimes that's a double-edged sword. Because I had more time to stress out over representing Lou Myers' son. And the thing about it was, you know, you learn people the more you spend time with them. So Lou, I could tell, was stressed out. Because he knows it doesn't take much to get a felony conviction, and then your life just went straight uphill. And I knew that because the week of the trial, he don't even mention it. A few days before the trial, he doesn't mention it. The day of the trial, he never asked me, what's your strategy going to be? He never asked me, which witnesses are you going to call? He never asked me, how are you going to cross-examine these officers? And we start the trial by myself with little Lewis. And after the trial, I called Luke and told him how it went. He knew what we were facing. He knew the odds were stacked absolutely against us. And he asked me what happened.
Go ahead, brother.
He said, not guilty on all counts. So, I said all that to say, Lou prepared me for this day.
That's right.
I didn't know it was coming. I don't know that he knew it was coming. But over the course of 20 years, he prepared me to stand here under this much pressure to deliver a word, to try and lift him up where he belongs. And so if anybody knew Lou Myers, he loved good preaching. And he would take me to Reverend Wright's church. And we would sit up in the balcony during Men's Week, Reverend Wright. And I'd listen to Freddie Haynes, when he would come, and all the others. And so I figured, what better way to salute a soldier than to preach a short sermon for Lou Myers. And the title of it is, But God Gives the Increase.
Go ahead now.
So the word comes out of the book of 1 Corinthians. And in the book of 1 Corinthians, Paul is talking to those of Corinth about this division that came up after Jesus Christ ascended. And they kind of broke up into camps. And there were two main individuals, at least at that time, that had people saying, I'm with this person, or I'm with that person. And Paul is talking like there is no division in Christ. But some of you are saying you're with me, and some of you are saying you're with Apollos. And so Paul says in the first chapter of Corinthians, 3rd chapter, 6th verse, he said, I have planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. We have heard about Attorney Myers' life.
Go ahead.
Attorney Myers hated tyranny. Attorney Myers hated oppression. And that's why in the Jim Crow segregated South, he led that boycott to desegregate the schools. But what wasn't said was that when he led that boycott, a sheriff came to his home that night and said, "You got till sundown to get out of town." So in high school, Lou and his girlfriend Tina were living under the threat of death even then. But then as Lou continued and was in Mississippi, not Idaho, not Rhode Island, Mississippi. It's something when you look for the hottest battlefield to be found on. That was Attorney Louis Myers. And so he's in Mississippi with literal shootouts with the Klan. He's a lawyer already, strapped. Every time he went to court and left court. He told me he would have his 38 in his briefcase just in case something jumped off in the courthouse. That was Lou Myers. But the Klan represented oppression.
Yes.
And the Klan represented tyranny.
Go ahead, beloved.
So he hated that.
Yes, sir.
And he was found fighting against that. So when the Decatur 7 happened, and our young brothers were tossed out of school for 2 years, then some reporters did a study, and they found out that this just wasn't in Decatur. It was all over the United States of America that black boys were being disproportionately expelled from school over minor offenses. So it became a national issue because Attorney Lou Myers hates oppression, and he hates tyranny. And there's a case that no one talked about. Because I'm not sure that anybody, and I know no one was with Lou when it happened, but me. And he had a case out in Markham. And I went and drove him to Markham, and I stood with him. And it was a murder case. And the prosecutors were going to seek the death penalty. But it was a black judge presiding over the preliminary hearing. And so the prosecutors had a stack of SOJs. And for non-lawyers, that means substitution of judges. And they had a stack of them for any capital case that came up. They were automatically going to file a motion to substitute this black judge. And so I'm standing there with Lou, and they sure enough SOJ, and we walk out. And Lou got upset when we got in the hallway. He said, "Bervey, come on back in here." We turned around and come back. He said, recall this case. They recalled the case. And the judge, and Lou told the judge, "I want to hear it. Because these prosecutors are racist and they're filing SOJs on anybody that has a capital case because you're a black judge." Okay, like I almost passed out, right? I'm like, man, Lou, you can talk to them like that? Lou can talk to them like that. I couldn't talk to them like that. So this case came up for hearing because Lou was charging the prosecutor's office with racism. And so the courtroom was packed. Judges came in to watch the hearing. And Lou started arguing like only Lou could. And there was at one point during the hearing that Lou said to the judge, "Isn't it something that in 2001, the grandson of slaves is arguing against the grandson of slave masters over the rights of black folk?" That was Attorney Louis Myers Jr. The prosecutor didn't even object. Now, one of two things. Either it was true that the prosecutor was the grandson of slave masters, or they were just in such shock that Lou would say that they couldn't even open their mouth to respond.
Go ahead.
But that was Attorney Louis Myers Jr. And so this man absolutely fashioned me as an attorney. He fashioned Attorney Grant as an attorney. And as time goes on, you start to develop, you start to grow, started getting clients. And I didn't spend as much time with Lou as I was in my early days, but that's because we just started developing. But then I got a case in 2005, and it went to trial in 2007. And it was a case wherein a black man went into police custody perfectly fine. 3 hours later, he was dead. And when he was dead, he had bruises and abrasions on his head, and his right hand was split open. And he wasn't like that when he went in. So this family came to me because they had gone to others, and no one was willing to take the case. All they had was his morgue photographs, and they had a picture of his mugshot. And the reason why they got a picture of his mugshot, because there was some conscientious officer who knew that there was something wrong with Mr. Fred Brady's case. And that when he went to see the family, he dropped a picture of the mugshot on the floor before he left out. And so they brought me the picture of the mugshot and his head. I didn't know Mr. Grady. I didn't know the people that were in front of me. But I know how Attorney Lewis Myers trained me. And so with nothing to go on but that, I told them I would take the case.
Yes, sir.
And so I started taking this case. We started doing discovery, conducted 18 depositions, and watch what happened. Lou told me, like he told you, don't try that black stuff. He told me, Bervey, this case ain't going to trial because you don't have enough here. I said, okay, I'll be back. And I would go get some more discovery. Come back. Lou, what do you think? He said, you're not going to make it past the 12B6. That means a motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim. I said, I'll be back. I get some more discovery. They filed a motion. And what's quite interesting is, I'm sure I looked like I didn't know what I was doing, because I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew was I had to take that case. That's all I knew. And so I was slow to do discovery. So the judge threatened me. Counsel, I suggest you start doing some discovery. Yes, sir. So then I started sending out subpoenas. And so he said, the judge to me, counsel, I suggest that you settle this case. I said, Judge, they're offering $30,000. He said, I suggest you settle this case before they file a 12B6. I'm like, okay, well, if they weren't thinking about a 12B6, I guess they are now. So they filed the 12B6. We do the research, motion denied. I go back to Luke. I said, Luke, their 12B6 got denied. He said, well, you're not going to make it past the Rule 56, which is a motion for summary judgment. I'll be back. Go get some more discovery. We have the hearing. The judge takes 4 months to rule. And he said, counsel, I suggest you settle this case before they file this Rule 56. I said, Judge, they're still offering $30,000. So we file it. We argue it. Motion denied. We're getting ready to go to trial. So now the judge sees more than he saw before. But he was running down on me to get this case over with. But because I was trained by Attorney Lewis Myers Jr., it mattered not whether or not the judge was raining down on me or not. We were going to keep the fight going until we couldn't fight anymore. And so we end up on the eve of trial, and we're in a pre-trial hearing with the judge. Now everybody sees that we've made it past these hurdles because we should have made it past those hurdles. So we're sitting at the hearing table now. And the judge turns to me and says, counsel, the city is now offering $300,000. And I said to myself, yeah, but you all wanted me to settle for $30,000. So now tell me what that makes me think about you. I didn't say that. No. But I knew that the life of a black man was worth more than $300,000 when he was killed by Chicago police officers in the station. So I said to the judge, because I felt my client's spirit next to me, it was an insult to him. So that's all I needed to know, that he was insulted, because that gave me some fuel. And I said to the judge, I said, Judge, we would rather go to trial and lose than to take $300,000. That judge looked at me like, where did you come from? Lou Myers Jr. is where I came from. And so Attorney Myers was right there with me. We sued 3 police officers, a lieutenant, and a captain. White shirts. Sitting at the defense table. We start the case. And I put the medical examiner on the stand because if you didn't realize, the medical examiner is the one that helps certain police officers get away with murder. Because they're the ones that say accidental death when it was a straight up homicide.
Yes, sir.
And so I had done my homework, a la the school of Attorney Louis Myers Jr. So I had this medical examiner forwards and backwards, up and down. So I asked him 11 questions right up front. Attorney Myers right there at the table. I said, sir, how many autopsies did you do on this body? 1 or 2? 1. Did you include all injuries in your autopsy report? He said yes. Did you accurately measure all of the injuries? Yes. Did you do anything to the body before you conducted your autopsy? No. And I asked him 6 or 7 more questions. So 11 questions right up front. Yes or no, 1 or 2. Those were the only answers. And then we started the cross-examination. So 3 hours after I cross-examined this medical examiner, that man changed 10 of the 11 answers that he had said right up front. And at the end of that day, Attorney Louis Myers said to me, Bervey, that was the best cross-examination I have ever seen in my life. Now, the jury ruled for the police. Even though the medical examiner changed 10 of 11 answers, they ruled for the police. And that's the uphill road that you have to walk when you're in the struggle for freedom, justice, and equality for black people. You can make the case. But just because you make the case doesn't mean you're going to prevail in the end. Attorney Louis Myers knew that, but he never lost the will to fight. No matter how many times somebody ruled against him. And more recently, a minister in the Nation of Islam came up dead in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He went on a boat outing with 7 co-workers, all white male co-workers. The 7 co-workers go home that night. Our minister didn't. And the police came out. And the boat was anchored. And the men said, oh, he went down right by the boat. 3 feet from the boat. And these other men that were on the boat couldn't reach out and get our brother 3 feet from the boat.
Right. Teach.
But isn't it interesting that when the first responders got there, the first thing they said was, pull up anchor and move the boat. Well, why would you tell a boat to move if they just said somebody went down where the boat was anchored? Unless you didn't want the divers to find the person that just went down if he was in the water. So they did a search and couldn't find our brother. And the next day, he's pulled from the water at 4 in the afternoon. But when they pulled him up, he didn't look like what he looked like when he got on the boat.
That's right.
Because he didn't have any injuries on his face. But when they pulled him from the water, he had a swollen lip. He had abrasions and bruises all over his face. He had a hemorrhage to his eye. And he had bruises on his face. And they said, all that happened underwater. So when I saw the photographs of our brother, it reminded me of Mr. Grady. And just like when I said with Mr. Grady, all I know is I'm going to take this case. I know when I saw our brother, I said, I'm going to take this case. Because the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said he wanted to know the truth of what happened to our brother. And so, after a year and a half of discovery, they had 5 law firms on the other side. And every time we went to court to argue a hearing, I argued against 5 lawyers. And in one day, there were 7 rulings, Dre, that were ruled on by this judge.
Go ahead.
And we had won 6 out of the 7 hearings and rulings. I said, well, maybe we got a decent judge. So the case proceeds, and as discovery occurs, I said, wait a minute, there's more to this case than meets the eye. So then I do a motion to amend the complaint to add in the sheriff's department, the fire department, and his former employer for conspiracy to commit murder. Now, you customarily sue a police officer or officers for excessive use of force. Rarely do you sue them for conspiracy to commit and cover up a murder. But that's what we did, because I went to the School of Litigation of Attorney Lewis Myers, Jr. So then during that hearing, and I would always consult, one time Tina, myself, and Lou went out to eat, and I'm running down the case to Lou, trying to get his thoughts and perspective on it. So when that case came up for hearing, there were 9 lawyers on the other side. And in that one hearing, I argued against 9 lawyers.
Yes.
Now that was just way too heavy for that judge, so he denied our motion, but I'm trying to make a point here. I didn't bow down. I didn't bend my knees. Dorothy, I wasn't shaking just because there was 9 lawyers on the other side and the judge became the 10th one and ruled against us. And I'm trying to make a point. I'm not up here boasting on myself. I'm up here boasting on Attorney Lewis Myers, Jr. Because you can tell a tree by the fruit that it bears. And I hang on the Lou Myers tree of litigation. Attorney Lewis Myers taught me how to cross-examine. Attorney Lewis Myers taught me how to stare down quote-unquote giants and not shake and not bend. Attorney Lewis Myers taught me how to keep the struggle and the fight even though the road is uphill. I learned that from Attorney Lewis Myers. However, I can't give Attorney Lewis Myers all the credit because my uncle Robert C. Power, he planted the seed in my head. Attorney Lewis Myers watered that seed, but God gave the increase. And so I'm so thankful to God for Attorney Lewis Myers Jr. in my life.
Beautiful, brother.
I'm so thankful for my uncle Robert C. Power. And I'm thankful for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Were it not for him, I wouldn't even know Attorney Lewis Myers Jr. So, for all of those who are out there, who are these scared to death Negroes that we're talking about, we don't honor Attorney Lewis Myers' legacy if we're scared to take up a fight just because of the odds that are stacked against us. We don't honor his legacy if it's all about the money and not about the cause, because we have to find ourselves committed to a cause bigger than ourselves. Because as was said earlier, if we aren't willing to stand for something, we'll die for anything. And so, as we consider that Attorney Lewis Myers' body may be in the grave somewhere, his spirit still lives on.
That's right.
Because we cannot give up because of what happens during the course of the struggle. And I want to end on this point.
Yes, sir.
The judge threw the case out in Grand Rapids and said we didn't have a case. And so we're up on appeal now. But the judge didn't just end with that. Counsels and judges. The lawyers filed motions for sanctions against me and the other lawyers. Because in Michigan, if you file a case and lose, then the other side can sue you for their costs and attorney's fees. So you heard me say that there were 5 lawyers on the other side for a year and a half. And they filed a motion for sanctions against me personally, our law firm, the lawyer that sponsored us, Attorney Jeffrey Edison, and Attorney Sadi Evangelista out of $1.1 million. Stand here in front of you. I stand here in front of you with a $1.1 million judgment on my head and my law firm. But check my spirit. Do I look like I'm concerned about a $1.1 million judgment? Do I look like I'm concerned about what this judge said? I'm not in the least bit concerned. in the least bit concerned because there were others that paid a price before us so that we could stand here as judges, as lawyers, as politicians. Our people paid a price. Marcus Garvey paid a price to dare to unite black people. Medgar Evers paid a price. Malcolm X paid a price. All these, James Meredith paid a price for lawyers to go to law school in the South. And our sister Mary Turner, who none of you even know her name, but in the book, Lynching, 100 Years of Lynching, Without Sanctuary, there's the account of Mary Turner. And it says, after learning of the lynching of her husband, Mary Turner, in her 8th month of pregnancy, vowed to find those responsible, swear out warrants against them, and have them punished in the courts. She dared to find the killers of her husband, as a strong black woman would. And she wanted to use the court system to do that. Then it says, for making such a threat, a mob of several hundred men and women determined to teach her a lesson. After tying her ankles together, they hung her from a tree, head downward, dousing her clothes with gasoline. They burned her body. While she was still alive, someone used a knife reserved for splitting hogs to cut open the woman's abdomen. The infant fell from her womb to the ground and cried briefly, whereupon a member of the mob crushed the baby's head beneath his heel. Hundreds of bullets were then fired into Mary Turner's body, completing the work of the mob. The Associated Press, in its notice of the affair, observed that Mary Turner had made unwise remarks about the execution of her husband, and the people in their indigent mood took exceptions to her remarks. What's the point I'm trying to make? $1.1 million does not cost more than what Mary Turner suffered. $1.1 million does not weightier than all our black people that hung from trees, simply because they wanted to use a court system to try and redress a grievance. But I'm going to tell you, like the Honorable Minister Farrakhan told me this morning, how long are we going to look to a system that just gives us injustice after injustice after injustice? How long? Attorney James Montgomery, who wrote a book that talked about his time in Louise, Mississippi, and he saw all the racism down in Mississippi, and then he entered the legal field to try and change the system. And after 50 plus years of practice, he wrote a book called Full Circle, because he realized and recognized that after 50 years of fighting this unjust system, that is still just as racist as it was when he was in Louise, Mississippi. So how long? How long will we stand here seeking to get what we haven't gotten?
Go ahead, beloved.
Since we've been on the shores of America. At a certain point, we ought to pay attention to what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. He said, separate and live. At some point, the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan said this morning, how many brilliant black minds are we going to give over to the injustice system to have some of our people broken, some of our people dispirited because of the injustice that we get? But that $1.1 million isn't weightier than all the people that went to jail during the civil rights movement, Dorothy. It's not weightier than some that are still in jail right now who dared to struggle for our freedom. And so I'm just offering that at a certain point, we got to come to the realization that it's just not working for us. Yes, I have a law degree, but I'd much rather be somewhere on our own with peace of mind than having to go to an injustice system trying to get justice in a system that's built on white supremacy. And it's built on white supremacy because that's what was in place while we were still in slavery. It hasn't changed. The Supreme Court Justice Taney said a black man has no, a Negro has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. And in 2018, we're looking at the same story. Over 100 years after Justice Taney said that.
That's right.
Injustice Taney said that.
That's right.
So I close with saying this. Attorney Lewis Myers, he paid a price. He sacrificed his family to be on the front lines of the battlefield for us. So I'm going to tell you right now, though Lewis Myers is in a grave, I'm here to serve notice on all the would-be giants, all the would-be Goliaths, all the would-be enemies of freedom, justice, and equality. He might be in the ground, but his spirit still lives. And some of us will carry that spirit as long as we can, as far as we can, and be like Attorney Lewis Myers, unbound, unbroken, and unbent. I love you, Lewis Myers. I love you.
As you remain standing, we're going to allow Attorney Powers to lead the family out. If you will remain where you are. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord grant you his everlasting peace. And may the Lord take you from this place to your several destinations and give you peace and joy as you go forth this week. Would y'all remain in your positions until the family has left?
In the mansions, bright and blessed, he'll prepare for us a place. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing